Tonight on PrimeTime, a divide in Washington's strategy for Ukraine. President Trump rules out sending long-range Tomahawk missiles, even as new Patriot systems arrive in Kyiv. The move highlights a shift. America's support continues, but its limits are now clearer. The US then is still backing Ukraine, but is it stepping back from the fight? Good evening. President Trump has confirmed the US will not supply Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, despite Pentagon approval. Instead, Washington has sent more Patriot air defense units as Russian attacks intensify. Allies worry this signals a cooler approach from Washington, one that may reshape the battlefield and the balance of power in Eastern Europe. Let's take a look at how the events unfolded.
The US won't send long-range Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. President Donald Trump made that clear aboard Air Force One. He said he was not really considering giving Kyiv long-range Tomahawk missiles. However, before that statement, Trump had publicly floated the idea of providing long-range missiles to Ukraine, saying that Volodymyr Zelensky would like him to add Tomahawks to Kyiv's arsenal. Tomahawk missiles have a range of 2,500 kilometers, enough to strike deep inside Russia, including Moscow. The US president's statement came as Ukraine's military chief said his troops were battling multi-thousand enemy forces in key frontline town Pokrovsk in the Donetsk Oblast. On the front lines, Russia claims its forces have besieged Ukrainian troops in the town of Pokrovsk. The Russian Defense Ministry says Ukrainian forces have been surrounded and that several attempts to break through the encirclement were repelled. Geolocated footage published on November 1st, indicates that Russian forces recently advanced in southeastern Pokrovsk. Ukraine, however, denies any blockade or surrender, saying its troops continue to hold their positions in the Pokrovsk-Myronivka area. Ukrainian military officials call the Russian reports false and exaggerated. The fight for Pokrovsk has become a focal point in Russia's campaign to seize the remaining Ukrainian-held parts of Donetsk region.
Okay, joining us now to discuss the implications of this is Professor of US and International Relations at the Clinton Institute at the University College Dublin, Scott Lucas. Professor, always good to see you. Thanks again for joining us. Let's delve into this then. You've got deadly strikes without congressional or international approval. Has Washington overstepped its legal limits?
Well, in terms of what is happening in the Caribbean, I think without a doubt, there is a setting aside of both international law as well as what should be the standard U.S. procedure for carrying out deadly acts of force. Just to remind everybody, you're talking about what are now 15 strikes, killing at least 50 people. And these people may or may not have been smuggling drugs. These are fishing boats. There's been no evidence presented that they are connected to international drug smuggling, whether that be from Venezuela or Colombia. If you were to take that and compare it with the case you talked about, elsewhere, which is the question of whether or not there's U.S. support for Ukraine strikes inside Russia, that's a very different matter because, Ukraine is counterattacking against a Russian invasion, hitting facilities that are supporting that Russian invasion. So I think with the Trump administration, it's always important to take this on a case-by-case basis. And I think you can clearly say that it is different from supporting a country which has been attacked, whose sovereignty has been challenged now with a full-scale invasion for almost 4 years, versus attacking people who are on fishing boats and who may not have any connection to any type of crime.
Yeah, let's talk about this a bit more, Scott. Drug traffickers and terrorists, I think everybody would agree, are both bad, but they are also different too. Do you see any dangers in treating both types of individual the same?
Well, I think the important thing is to get to grips with both of those terms that are being used by the Trump administration to say, okay, in terms of a legal and political sense, what exactly is the rationale that you go on here? Now, first of all, let's again go in terms of drug smuggling. The allegation from the Trump administration has been that Venezuela is significant in terms of both the smuggling of cocaine into the United States and the opioid fentanyl into the United States. In both cases, that simply is not true. Most cocaine production from South America comes from Bolivia, Colombia, and Peru, not Venezuela. Venezuela has almost no fentanyl production. The precursors for fentanyl, the ingredients that make up fentanyl, come from China largely, and the main production facilities for fentanyl are in Mexico. So this is a pretext that they are attacking drug smugglers. So you could say, are they attacking, therefore, terrorists? There is no evidence of what you would call a terrorist activity in the sense that we might have associated with an Al-Qaeda, with an Islamic State, with another transnational movement coming out of Venezuela. There's not a single, quote, terrorist attack I can think of in the United States which has a Venezuelan source. So what is going on here? Let us be honest. What is happening here is that the Trump administration is stepping up its challenge to the Maduro government in Venezuela. Now, the United States has tried for more than 20 years to overthrow the government in Venezuela. They did it under the George W. Bush administration when they tried to overthrow Hugo Chavez, and now they're trying to overthrow the successor, Nicolas Maduro. Now, that government, I don't like the Maduro government. I think it's destructive. I think it's repressive. I think it has detained and killed people. But you have to be honest here, which is that the Trump people are talking about a regime change. They're not talking about supporting opponents in elections. They're not talking about civil society. They're talking about using the threat of military force to try to instigate a coup inside Venezuela. And we know from the experience with other countries that can be very, very dangerous in terms of what leads to the further instability and killing beyond whatever happens to the government that you're trying to overthrow.
How far do you think the US can stretch this umbrella term, this umbrella justification of security? Do you think this emboldened administration that's acting in this way around the world, obviously there are benefits to that, but do you worry about this justification of security?
Oh, I mean, the Trump administration is stretching the idea of security beyond breaking point. We know that. I mean, if you talk about it in terms of the overseas realm, which we're talking about the Trump administration or Trump himself threatening military action. He's threatened it against Greenland, if you can remember that far back, to seize that country from Denmark. He's threatened it against Panama. He has threatened it in recent days against Nigeria. Now, none of those cases have to deal with an imminent threat to U.S. security. They have to deal with Donald Trump's ego. They have to deal with the politicization of certain issues. In the case of Nigeria, it's trying to stoke religious division over Christians versus Muslims. But you have to match that up what is happening at home. The Trump administration is stretching the notion of internal security beyond breaking point, where it is completely disregarding the law. Indeed, it's trying to break the rule of law when it comes to immigration, when it comes to law enforcement, when it comes to the use of the American military, which is now being deployed on American streets. To be very blunt with you, when you have a government with a leader who wants to be authoritarian, security is a flexible term which serves only the interest of that president and his inner circle in trying to get absolute authority.
Yeah, I mean, I guess many people would argue that the Maduro government has done a lot of bad. The economy, they would point to as being one example of this inability to get control of society. But I take your point. I mean, what do you think Mr. Trump, the US in general, what do you understand the impression of the US to be now in Latin America?
Yeah, I mean, let's take that point you make really well, which is, in saying this and in criticizing the Trump administration, which I'm doing, is in no way to excuse what has happened with Maduro. You have a country where 10% of the population, more than 3 million people, have left because of the political repression, because of the economic problems which have been accentuated by that government, which now acts in itself in an authoritarian manner. Maduro rewards his friends, he rewards his allies, his elites, and the rest of the public are, well, you will crack down on them if they dissent. So let's be very clear about that. But once again, are we talking about a common sense approach by the Trump administration to help Venezuelans, to get them into a better economic position, to get more political space for them? And we are not talking about that. We are not talking about, for example, working with other Latin American countries to try to provide an economic framework, to try to limit the excesses of the Maduro government. We're not talking about encouragement of civil society in Venezuela. Indeed, when Maria Machado won the Nobel Prize, the Colombian dissident, recently, the first reaction of the Trump White House was to insult her and say that the Nobel Committee was putting politics above peace. What we're talking about is the Trump administration using the excesses of the Maduro government to exert American power, or specifically Trumpist power. And again, I'll just repeat, we have seen this go wrong in the past in other areas of the world. In 2003, when the US government went into a full-scale war because there were serious issues regarding what Saddam Hussein did to the Iraqi people, it led to one of the deadliest episodes in modern history. You can criticize the Maduro government and call for meaningful action against the Maduro government without making the situation worse.
Just very quickly, finally, Scott, for our viewers, just if you can, just lay out the case for why you think this accusation, this idea of regime change, targeting Maduro's government. Why is the Trump administration so driven then to do this?
I think there are a few things that are in play here. And let me emphasize the reason why I say this is pursuit of regime change and not just simply knocking off a few alleged drug smugglers is there are now at least 9 American warships off the coast of Venezuela, including an aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald Ford, with its battle group. You do not do that if you're just trying to attack fishing boats. Now, why is this being done? The first is, as I mentioned, there's been a long time power play in terms of South America, where the U.S. has long held and asserted influence and has overthrown governments for decades, indeed centuries. This happens to be an ongoing battle between Venezuela and Washington, but this is compounded by 2 things. One is it's compounded by Donald Trump's ego and the contradiction, which is while he says he has solved 8 wars, maybe 9, which isn't true, but nevertheless, he actually is willing to go to war to prove that he's a tough guy. And that's linked to the other reason, which is there are other people who want to be tough guys in the administration. Pete Hegseth, who now calls himself the Secretary of War, a man who commanded a National Guard unit but rose no higher, he wants to pose as the tough guy. You have others around the Trump White House who want to pose as the fact that they can exert this type of macho power. And who do they exert it against? Nicolas Maduro. He's the convenient bad guy. Whether or not they can succeed in that using those 9 warships, that's a different question.
Okay, we're sure this battle of the tough guys will continue. Professor Scott Lucas, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Okay, time now for a short break. We'll be back in just a few moments with some regional news. Do stay with us.
said, the world never sleeps, but who's ready to wake you up with all you need to know about what is happening across the globe and in the region?
We are. Daybreak is live every morning, bringing you a complete wrap-up of the stories from overnight and all the news already happening in the world.
The biggest global headlines, the key regional developments, the must-read stories shaping the day.
We show them, we discuss them, we guide you through their meaning. We give you the news and a first look at the key headlines.
I'm Nadia Jani.
And I'm Lou Brown.
Join us, it's Daybreak here at A News.
Welcome back. Let's continue with our regional stories now. And Armenia's Prime Minister is urging Armenians and Azerbaijanis to move past decades of mistrust. The message marks a notable shift, calling for a mindset change as Yerevan signals a desire for lasting regional stability.
Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan has called for a fundamental shift in how Armenians and Azerbaijanis perceive each other, urging both nations to move beyond decades of mistrust and Cold War-era thinking. Speaking at a public event in Yerevan on Friday, Pashinyan said the two peoples remain trapped in eternal enemy stereotypes, which he believes were shaped by Soviet influence.
When we say a Turk never changes, in Turkey they say the same thing about Armenians. When we say, how can we trust Azerbaijan, they say the same thing about Armenians. When we say, we have learned nothing from history, they say, you have learned nothing from history if you want peace with the Armenians. We must free ourselves from a worldview shaped for us by KGB agents.
Pashinyan suggested that Soviet-era policies deliberately deepened the Turkish-Armenian and Armenian-Azerbaijani divides to advance Moscow's geopolitical interests. In response, Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova criticized Pashinyan's remarks, pointing out that the KGB was established in 1954 and accused the Armenian leader of distorting historical facts to undermine Russia's image in the region. Experts say the Prime Minister's stance highlights Armenia's shifting geopolitical priorities.
So I think what's my reading of what Pashinyan is doing is that he's trying to orient Armenia in a new context in terms of the European Union, NATO, the United States, hence why he was also supportive with his counterpart, President Aliyev, in Washington for the role that President Trump of the United States has made to bring these two sides together. And by virtue of that fact that the economic prosperity and political prosperity of Armenia can be realized going forward. It has absolutely made a decision, or he has, that Russia is not the immediate future or should not be for Armenia. And I think he is just continuing that effort.
Pashinyan's comments come as Armenia continues its efforts to normalize relations with Azerbaijan.
Okay, joining me now in the studio to discuss this, I'm delighted to say, is our very own Orkan Amashov. Orkan, thanks for joining us. A shift in tone then from the Armenian leadership. What's behind this, do you think?
Well, one may reasonably argue, Guy, that this could be described as a shift in tone, but this has been happening for some considerable time. In fact, I think that this Armenian change of point of view regarding Azerbaijan's territorial integrity, necessity of having peace with Azerbaijan, all of the things have been in gestation for some considerable time. Of course, there is a reality which has been shaped by post-8th of August reality, a breakthrough. Effectively, Nikol Pashinyan, Prime Minister of Armenia, needs to prove to his public, to his electorate, that peace with Azerbaijan is a good thing. This is one thing. And he wants to show potential dividends of that peace arrangement. For example, as you know, very recently, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev announced that Azerbaijan lifted a ban on the transit of cargo to Armenia, which is a very good thing. So Armenia will get some economic benefit from that move, and there will probably be some reciprocal arrangement benefiting Azerbaijan. And also, of course, he is preparing his country for that fundamental legally binding peace treaty, which has been initialed, as we know, but has not been signed yet. and he needs to win this pre-election battle against his competitors, against Mr. Karapetyan and his followers. So he effectively saying that Russia is to be blamed. I think that there is a considerable amount of truth in the assertion that Azerbaijanis and Armenians were pitted against each other thanks to some form of Soviet engineering. This is indeed true. Of course, not everything that has happened between these two countries can be blamed on Russia, I suppose. Wider picture is far more complicated. I wouldn't call it a shift in tone. I would call it continuation of the self-same rhetoric. The reality is that now Prime Minister Pashinyan needs to make proper, plausible, positive statements. And he needs to be seen as a peacemaker. And this particular rhetoric enables him to look very positive in the eyes of international community. Blaming Russia for some of the mistakes of Armenia is a reasonable course of action because Russia played an important role. Because let me be absolutely clear about it. As I said, we can't blame Russia for everything, but the reality is that in late 80s and early 90s, when this conflict in its new form and shape emerged, a former Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, it was of course instigated by Russian intelligence. And of course Russia benefited immensely over the 3 decades from the continuation of this conflict. And Russia wanted to make it an eternal conflict, but then failed to achieve that purpose because reality changed in 2020, when Azerbaijan regained a preponderant part of its formerly occupied territories.
And of course that role that Russia plays will be something that both sides will obviously be aware of. And you pointed out there that this is not necessarily a change in direction, it's just a continuation of the existing one. Nevertheless, what do you expect the response, if any, from Baku to be?
I think Baku will treat any comment by Prime Minister Pashinyan and his allies with cautious optimism. There is a degree of appreciation in this country when it comes to the concerted efforts by the members of Pashinyan's government to prove to Azerbaijani side that Armenia has changed as a country and fundamentally they want peace. Recently, actually, one of Pashinyan's key allies, Mr. Simonian, who happens to be the Speaker of the Parliament, said that that demand of Azerbaijan's regarding constitutional referendum is not a precondition, but it's a concern expressed by Azerbaijan. So Armenia is slowly and gradually changing and altering its rhetoric and sort of in view of some of the critics of the government of Nikol Pashinyan, rationalizing Azerbaijan's demands. So Azerbaijan will treat it with a degree of optimism, but still, 2 things should happen for Azerbaijan to be fully convinced. One is we need to see real actions regarding Trump route for international peace and prosperity. And we know that nothing has happened there on the ground. Infrastructure is not there. Armenians and Americans need to talk to each other. They need to come up with certain arrangement. And President Aliyev recently said that probably Zengezur corridor, that overland passage connecting Azerbaijan's mainland with Nakhchivan exclave, will not be ready by late 2028. So this is one reality we need to face and address. And number 2, of course, constitutional referendum. But we know nothing will happen prior to the parliamentary elections. Fundamental concern of the current administration in Yerevan is to win this election. And to win this election, he has to prove to his public that peace with Azerbaijan is a good thing.
And so your assessment then is that this is possibly predominantly more symbolic than substantive, but actually in a sense that is a necessary part of the strategy.
I think there is an element of symbolism in that, but also it's a practical action. Over the past few months, after 8th of August, we have seen a number of meetings taking place between Azerbaijani and Armenian delegations. I don't think President Aliyev and Prime Minister Pashinyan, they met a couple of times actually. They met in Washington on the 8th of August, naturally, when they signed that joint declaration. They met afterwards, I think, in Europe. Yeah, they were both attending this EPC meeting, of course. And they also were in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. And Armenia is also going to be part of Abraham Accords. Also, there have been a couple of meetings involving deputy prime ministers, foreign ministers as well, and also even members of civil society and expert communities. That meeting, actually first ever self-organized bilateral meeting between Azerbaijani and Armenian experts, took place in Yerevan, which was very qualitatively new moment in the bilateral interaction of these 2 countries. So really, I wouldn't say it's mere symbolism. Practical actions are taking place, but there's one thing there. For Azerbaijan, as I mentioned earlier, the practical action would mean practical actions on the ground within that area which we call Zengezur corridor, which Armenia calls Sunni corridor. We haven't seen much real action, tangible action on the ground. And Pashinyan recently has reiterated that point about the connection between Azerbaijan's mainland with Armenia, not via Zengezur, but some other routes. And Azerbaijani analysts and statesmen who are actually paying attention to details, realize that there is a reiteration of the self-same point with the attempt to present it as a new. And that is not really something that people here appreciate. But I would say it is more than symbolism. It's definitely more than symbolism. But we need to see more action. And we'll see more action. For example, in Yerevan, I think in May, there will be the new edition of European Political Community. And invitations will be extended to Azerbaijani and Turkish leaders. I think recently Presidential aide Hikmet Hajiyev said that probably President Aliyev will not attend that particular meeting because the circumstances, atmospherics are not conducive to that sort of participation. But I'm inclined to believe, despite the official statements, that some form of Azerbaijani prime ministerial presence there is indeed within the realm of possibility. But this is a mere speculation, nothing officially confirmed. In fact, official information is that President Aliyev or any other Azerbaijani high-ranking official will not be there.
Now, you mentioned Turkey there. You mentioned at the top a little bit of information about Russia and the role they're playing. Just explain a bit more about these two big, very different actors.
Yeah, actually, within the confines of South Caucasus, there is a format known as 3+3. So you've got the three regional actors, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia, and three big historic neighbors, Iran, Turkey, and Russia. And your question is related to Turkey and Russia. Two big neighbors with vested interest in this region. Formerly, I mean, they have always been at loggerheads, but also they've been able to, apart from competing with each other, which is a natural course of action for these two great powers, but also two great regional powers, but also they have been collaborating as well. Well, their interests differ in the following fundamental respect. Turkey is a key treaty ally of Azerbaijan. What was declared in July, or rather June of 2021, Shusha Declaration, has become eventually treaty. Azerbaijan and Turkey are treaty allies. Naturally, Turkey is interested in Azerbaijani-Armenian peace treaty, because that peace treaty will allow Turkey to finalize its own normalization with Armenia, which effectively means more Turkish presence in Armenia, more Turkish business, in particular small and medium-sized businesses will be penetrating into Armenia, and Turkey will be an important factor inside Armenia. And currently Turkey is not in a position to play that role because of the fundamental lack of proper normalization. And Turkey does understand that. For that to happen, Azerbaijan and Armenia need to sign a peace deal. So peace construct here is perfectly within Turkish interest. Russian interest is one of recalibration and readjustment. I don't necessarily think that Russia was happy with the result of war 2020. I don't think that Russia was particularly happy with what happened in September 2020 when Azerbaijan fully regained its control over the remainder of Karabakh. But Russia is a rational actor, whatever one may think of it. And Russia will gradually readjust to the realities, and there are certain benefits for Russia within this newly emerging geopolitical construct here, and we know that there is a north-south route connecting Iran with Russia via Azerbaijan, and instead of actually, I think, derailing the existing process here involving Azerbaijan and Armenia, Russia will try to readjust. But the ultimate winner is Azerbaijan and also Armenia eventually. And amongst external actors, of course, Turkey in a far better position when it comes to the enhancement of its geopolitical economic interests in the region.
Let's just finally bring things back to life in Yerevan and in Baku. Your sense of where we're at now with the peace process. Clearly there's been progress, but when you consider not just those within the corridors of power, but also regular citizens in those cities, what is the sense of the current status quo?
I think we conducted here by ENI's conducted a couple of Vox Populi, and the results of those investigations and those interviews that our colleagues conducted in the streets of Yerevan, I think reveal in the clearest possible way there is I wouldn't say massive, but reasonable appetite for peace between the two countries. Definitely the element of active military confrontation has been removed from the agenda, in particular after 8th of August breakthrough. I think if you look at Armenian society, the preponderant majority of society is fully conscious of the impossibility and a complete implausibility of changing facts on the ground. That effectively means signing a peace deal. There is a certain section of society, which is not a majority, that section supports anti-Pashinyan forces. They believe in some form of revenge. Their understanding of revenge is not based really on real practical revenge now, but on actually not signing deal and letting that hope of some potential future revenge alive, keeping it alive. I think that's what they want. But ultimately, preponderant majority of Armenian society, I think, will be in favor of some form of peace. And same applies to Azerbaijan. I think for Azerbaijani public, what matters now is to translate the results of what happened over the past 5 years into legally binding treaty. And this is the reality we face. But now at this stage, we don't talk about proper people-to-people contact or proper reconciliation of two societies. That will take ages. That will take some considerable time, if not ages. What these two countries need to attain now is proper interstate normalization. So peace treaty. Once peace treaty is signed, the diplomatic relations, proper diplomatic relations will resume. And then, of course, the intensity of human-to-human contact will go up. And then we will be talking probably about proper reconciliation. But I think it will be naive and also probably counterproductive to impose on these two countries, which have been through turbulent years of animosity and acrimony, I think impose something which one may call artificial peace. Interstate normalization is indeed within the realm of possibility. I think that will happen. And step by step, people will speak to each other. And some of the shackles of the past will be naturally removed from the scope of interaction.
Very interesting. The shackles of the past naturally removed. Orkan, always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, we're going to take a very short break now. When we come back, we'll have the very latest business news. Do stay with us.
Said the world never sleeps, but who's ready to wake you up with all you need to know about what is happening across the globe and in the region?
We are. Daybreak is live every morning, bringing you a complete wrap-up of the stories from overnight and all the news already happening in the world.
The biggest global headlines, the key regional developments, the must-read stories shaping the day.
We show them, we discuss them, we guide you through their meaning. We give you the news and a first look at the key headlines.
I'm Nadia Jani.
And I'm Lou Brown.
Join us, it's Daybreak here at A News.
Welcome back to Prime Time. Now, Andy Miosh is here with the very latest business news.
Indeed, Guy, it's been quite a busy start to the week. From oil to AI, major sectors across the board are shifting gears towards growth. Let's start with energy. Oil demand will stay above 100 million barrels a day beyond 2040. That's according to Abu Dhabi National Oil Company's CEO. The UAE is balancing short-term OPEC Plus production cuts with long-term expansion plans.
Oil demand will remain above 100 million barrels per day beyond 2040, UAE oil giant ADNOC's chief executive Sultan Al Jaber said on Monday while flagging headwinds in the near term. The United Arab Emirates is one of 8 OPEC Plus countries that agreed to increase December output targets but pause increases in the first quarter of next year as the producers group moderates plans to regain market share due to rising fears of a supply glut. New Western sanctions on OPEC Plus member Russia are adding to challenges in the strategy, as Moscow may struggle to further raise output after the US and Britain imposed fresh measures on top producers Rosneft and Lukoil. Al Jaber said, however, that the long-term outlook shows growth in energy demand, adding that cost discipline must be balanced with capital investment.
While we may face headwinds in the months ahead, the long-term outlook shows demand growth for every form of energy across every market.
OPEC Plus has granted the UAE a bigger production quota this year after the country said the producer group was restricting its output too much when it had invested heavily to expand capacity to 4.85 million barrels per day from 3 million. UAE Energy Minister said in July that his country could further boost its oil capacity after 2027 if that is what markets require, implying the country had the potential to become one of the world's 5 biggest producers.
As energy steadies, biotech pivots. German BioNTech has raised its 2025 outlook after a new cancer drug deal with Bristol Myers Squibb. The company, best known for its COVID vaccines, is shifting toward oncology as its next growth driver.
Germany's BioNTech on Monday lifted its 2025 revenue guidance after receiving initial payments from its new partner Bristol Myers Squibb in a cancer immunotherapy alliance that seeks to challenge Merck's best-selling Keytruda. BioNTech, Pfizer's partner on COVID-19 vaccines, said it was projecting full-year revenue of 2.6 billion euros to 2.8 billion, up from a previous guidance range of 1.7 billion to 2.2 billion euros. Earlier this year, Bristol agreed to pay up to $11.1 billion in the partnership deal over time, depending on achievements. BioNTech said on Monday that the partners extended their clinical trial program for the cancer drug in question, pumitamig, during the third quarter and would add more trials by next year. The German biotech firm said third quarter revenue gained 22%. BioNTech is pivoting its focus to cancer drugs, which are expected to drive future growth of the company, as revenue from its COVID-19 vaccine steadily declines from their pandemic-era highs.
Aviation is taking off. Ryanair's profits soared more than 40% in the first half of the year to nearly $3 billion. Strong passenger demand and higher fares are fueling the low-budget airline's record growth.
Ryanair profits flew up 42% in the first 6 months of the year. The budget airline reported a forecast-beating $2.96 billion on Monday. That was well up from the same period last year and above analyst projections. Average fares also grew by 13% year on year. Ryanair also raised its passenger traffic forecast Monday. It cited earlier than expected Boeing deliveries and strong first-half demand. The carrier said it cautiously expects to recover all of last year's 7% average fare decline in the financial year to March end. It further added this should lead to what it called reasonable full-year net profit growth. Ryanair expects to fly 207 million passengers to end March, up by 1 million from a previous forecast. The uptick comes after the airline received 23 new MAX 8 aircraft from Boeing. Ryanair said it is confident of receiving the 6 remaining MAX 8 aircraft from an order that had suffered long delays by February. Shares were down over 2% in early Monday trade.
Partnerships are driving progress across industries. Renault is strengthening its global alliances, finalizing a deal with Geely in Brazil and holding talks with also China's Chery. The car maker aims to boost production efficiency and expand market reach.
Renault is in talks with more automakers, including China's Chery, to explore partnerships to jointly produce and sell cars. Renault Group's Chief Growth Officer Fabrice Cambelive told reporters on Friday about the talks, while also announcing the completion of a deal in Brazil with China's Geely on Monday. It underscores how Renault has been increasingly partnering with other automakers in global markets to improve the efficiency of its factories worldwide. According to a press release issued on Monday, Renault signed agreements to sell Geely over 26% of its Brazilian subsidiary. The two are linking up in the largest Latin American market, where BYD has been building a factory and gaining ground. As part of the agreement in Brazil, Geely will have access to Renault's factory in the state of Paraná. It will assemble Geely-branded cars and distribute them through Renault's sales network, while Renault will use Geely's vehicle architecture to expand its range to other segments for the Brazilian market.
Tech is on the rebound. Amazon shares climbed as its cloud arm AWS posted 20% growth in the third quarter. The strong numbers mark a comeback in the company's race for AI dominance.
Amazon shares soared in early trading Friday after it reported strong growth at its cloud unit. That, and a bullish sales outlook, eased fears that the tech giant was falling behind rivals in the AI race. Revenue at Amazon Web Services, the hub of the company's recent AI investments, rose 20% in the third quarter. Competing services Microsoft Azure saw revenue increase by 40%, while Google Clouds rose by 34%. But AWS's sheer scale magnifies its growth impact. Its $33 billion cloud revenue is more than double that of Google's $15.16 billion. Wall Street cheered AWS's comeback, with analysts noting the earnings marked a potential turning point for Amazon. Investors expected an AWS boost later than this, in either the fourth quarter or early next year. Until Friday's stock surge, Amazon shares had risen just 1.6% so far this year due to market share worries and a lack of solid AI updates. It marked the company out as the worst performer in the Magnificent Seven group of tech giants. Friday's gains, however, are helping pull Amazon out of that position and overtake Tesla and Apple.
Next up, streaming consolidation. Netflix is reportedly exploring a bid for Warner Bros. Discovery. The deal could hand the streamer control of major franchises, including Harry Potter and DC Comics.
Netflix is actively exploring a bid for Warner Bros. Discovery studio and streaming business. 3 sources told Reuters that Netflix has brought in investment bank Moelis & Company to explore the deal. That's the same firm that helped Skydance Media in its successful bid for Paramount Global. The streaming giant has also been given access to Warner Bros. Discovery's financial data, a key step in evaluating a potential offer. Warner Bros. And Moelis declined to comment, while Netflix could not be reached for comment. Owning the studio business would give Netflix control over some of Hollywood's most successful stories and characters, including the Harry Potter and DC Comics franchises. Warner Bros. Has received multiple unsolicited offers to buy the company. Its board is also weighing whether to proceed with a planned split or consider selling all or parts of the business.
Well, that's all for business and news. Guy, it's been a packed business segment today. Well, I think there's a clear message here. You got to partner up smart and adapt fast. Talk to you more tomorrow.
Partner smart and adapt fast. Thank you, Andy Miocz. Great advice there. Okay, we'll be back in just a couple of minutes with some regional news. Do stay with us.
We are 3 states and 1 nation, and that is Turkey, that is Azerbaijan and Pakistan.
Pakistan's Prime Minister is going to attend the victory parade in Baku.
Azerbaijan, for all what was going on in Armenia, and we were with Azerbaijan.
2 nuclear powers still in a type of conflict.
As a Prime Minister on the forum of SAARC, I had a lot of interactions with the former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh.
It's often said the world never sleeps, but who's ready to wake you up with all you need to know about what is happening across the globe and in the region?
We are. Daybreak is live every morning, bringing you a complete wrap-up of the stories from overnight and all the news already happening in the world.
The biggest global headlines, the key regional developments, the must-read stories shaping the day.
We show them, we discuss them, we guide you through their meaning. We give you the news and a first look at the key headlines.
I'm Nadia Jani.
And I'm Lou Brown.
Join us, it's Daybreak here at A News.
Welcome back to Prime Time. More news from the region now. And in Istanbul, ministers from Turkey, Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Pakistan and Indonesia all gathered as tensions flared once again over alleged ceasefire breaches between Israel and Hamas. Well, Turkey's Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan said the talks aim to review progress on the US brokered deal and discuss plans for an international force to monitor it. Well, the October the 10th agreement brought a pause in fighting, but questions remain over Hamas's disarmament and Israel's withdrawal and whether this fragile peace can really hold.
A high-level meeting on Gaza has begun today in Istanbul. The meeting, hosted by Turkey's Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan, aims to ensure the sustainability of the ceasefire in the region and to improve the humanitarian situation. The foreign ministers of Indonesia, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia and Jordan, along with representatives from the United Arab Emirates and Qatar, are attending the talks. Prior to the meeting, Hakan Fidan posed for a group photo with his counterparts. According to Turkish diplomatic sources, the discussions are focusing on the implementation of the 10th of October ceasefire and the severe humanitarian conditions faced by Palestinians living in Gaza.
Countries have expressed concerns that the steps being taken to ensure reconstruction, stability and security in Gaza could potentially evolve into a different arrangement. Work in this area is ongoing. First, a general consensus on the draft must be reached. Following this, it would need to be approved by the UN Security Council, with none of the permanent members exercising their veto. This is a process, and at every stage, we continue to work closely with Turkey and other partner countries.
Oldukça dikkatli olmamız gerekiyor.
The main objectives of the Istanbul meeting remain the security of Gaza, the transfer of its administration to the Palestinians, and the strengthening of the diplomatic process towards a two-state solution.
Ayarlamalar var. onların iyi yapılması.
Some adjustments are necessary in the process, and they must be carried out carefully. In our discussions with fellow foreign ministers, we explore how creative steps can be taken in this regard. While the current ceasefire holds, achieving a more lasting solution requires addressing the fundamental differences at the heart of the Palestinian issue. These are long-standing disagreements.
Olan görüş farklılıkları tekrar yine gündeme geliyor.
According to Hakan Fidan, it is more important than ever that the international community demonstrates a united and principled stance to ensure a just and lasting peace in the region.
Well, joining me now to discuss this further is Yashar Sadar, Director of Heydar Aliyev Center for Eurasian Studies at İlbin Hadın University in Istanbul, Turkey. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on Prime Time. Talk to us, please, about the key objectives of this meeting in Istanbul. How united, really, are the participating countries when it comes to Gaza's future?
I mean, the first thing is we should mention that the countries who are attending Istanbul meeting is coming from the Islamic world. Those who also participated meeting done at the United Nations. Trump and the Turkish President Erdogan was there. So the main issue related this meeting is there's a fear. I mean, the fear growing for increasingly fragile ceasefire, and already Israel is violating this ceasefire. So bringing the countries here to express to share a common view and also show the solidarity with the Palestine people in Gaza. So as already Turkish Foreign Minister emphasized, we don't want to genocide in Gaza to start again. So that's the main point. And as we know already, I mean, this ceasefire is the first stage. First stage means that to stopping fighting, providing the aids which people are suffering. I mean, the suffering of people is not ended yet, because Israel is not permitting the full-fledged the aids entering the region. So that's the important point to bringing the countries, surrounding countries, as well as the countries, including Indonesia, the Islamic countries together to having a common position to continuation of this truce.
And how realistic do you think it is to bring these parties together to create this idea of the international stabilization force to monitor the ceasefire? I mean, bringing nation states together is hard enough in much less complex, much less dramatic situations. I mean, is this something that's noble but not really very practical, do you think?
I mean, you are absolutely right, because this conflict is already 2 years long conflict brokered by the United States President Donald Trump. So that's Donald Trump has put his weight actually to stop the Israel attack and at least providing a ceasefire. So both sides, not only the Palestine side, but Israel also got something from this ceasefire. They released those who are captured by the Hamas, and they are already working on to giving the bodies who left in Gaza. So it's not easy. You are right. But if the countries act together and trying to save the process, then and show the solidarity with the Palestine people, that's make the have impact, at least the United States decision and the position on this issue. Otherwise, I mean, the Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu and his cabinet, those ultra-nationalist members, are wants to start this. I mean, not the fighting, the bombing. As we know already, even though ceasefire, they already attacked several times. So this is the very delicate condition, and the Turkish foreign minister and Turkey bringing especially heavy, I mean, the strong countries like Saudi Arabia, influential actor like the Qatar, the country which is very close to the Israel, among the Arab countries, United Arab Emirates, neighboring countries, Jordan, nuclear power countries, Pakistan and Indonesia, in Istanbul, and the talk to having a common, a joint position. That's an important point. But you are right, absolutely right. That doesn't mean that they can succeed, but at least they are putting pressure on the American government.
It's an incredibly complicated situation. People always want concrete answers, I know, but two of the major issues, just bring us up to speed, please, on where we are when it comes to Israeli withdrawal and Hamas disarmament.
I mean, this is the second stage. I mean, the first stage is the still is not completed because Israel supposed to permit the more aids to entering the Gaza. They are still is controlling, and they are not keeping the what they promised. And because of they say that they didn't get the full body of those who Israelis lost life in Gaza. Of course, it's difficult to. I mean, the 90% of the Gaza is destroyed, and it's difficult to take bodies from those rubbles. So that is the problematic part. The second stage, which you mentioned about the disarming Hamas and the withdrawing the Israelis from the yellow point to another point, take time. I mean, it's not easy. I mean, at least in that part is these countries who are met together. I mean, in Istanbul, they want to have at least Gaza, Palestine people to providing security and the security condition in the Gaza. That is I think it will take time. We will see that one.
And let's just look, if we will, at the role of Turkey, a very interesting way that it's positioning itself. It's been described as mediator, organizer, regional power broker. How would you see the role at the moment of Turkey?
Of course, Turkey has two hats. One hat is to staunchly supporting Hamas, because Turkish government and the President Erdogan see Hamas as a national fighters who are defending their own territory and their nation, their people. The second hat is Turkey has very close relation with the United States. Already the ambassador Thomas Barak mentioned yesterday, already Trump thanks to Erdogan 4 times to providing pushing the Hamas to signing this ceasefire. So Turkey also cooperating with the United States to keep this ceasefire in the region. That way, Turkey playing 2 roles. One is to pushing the Hamas to accept ceasefire, and the other is to also negotiating with the United States to providing providing assistance and providing Israel to followed this ceasefire agreement. But of course, already Prime Minister Netanyahu mentioned, if necessary, according to him, the Israel may attack again without asking permission from the United States. That is making the condition more problematic, more problem.
I mean, we've seen increased collaboration between this coalition of Muslim majority nations. How do you expect that group, that community, to shape the broader diplomatic approach as we go forward in terms of the rebuilding of Gaza?
I mean, first, if we look at the countries who sent their top diplomats in Istanbul, we can see that they are related Gaza. They don't have fully agreement. I mean, we know the United Arab Emirates very close to Israel. Among the Arab countries, the most have a strong relation with Israel. Saudi Arabia have its own approach because they don't like the Hamas, because they consider Hamas a part of the Muslim Brotherhood. Similar condition neighboring countries, the Jordan. Outside countries like the Indonesia and the Pakistan have a similar position with Turkey. So bringing them together is important. Why? Because they don't want this conflict turn again war. Because Israel aggression making these countries also having difficulties too. I mean, the turning the region in a fire wall. So that is to prevent that one. This country is acting together at this point, but we don't know. I mean, in the future they will stay together. But at least we can understand very clearly that these countries, they don't want this conflict to spread there on, and they want to be solved. But the solution, they have the different point.
Okay, thank you very much. Very interesting indeed. Always great to get your analysis. Thank you very much for joining us on Prime Time. Okay, coming up, the EU's unity is tested after pledges on Ukraine. Do stay with us.
We are 3 states and 1 nation, and that is Turkey, that is Azerbaijan and Pakistan.
Pakistan's prime minister is going to attend the victory parade in Baku.
Azerbaijan, for all what was going on in Armenia, and we were with Azerbaijan.
2 nuclear powers still in a type of conflict.
As a prime minister on the forum of SAARC, I had a lot of interactions with the former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh.
Welcome back to PrimeTime. Now, tensions continue to escalate over attacks ordered by the Trump administration on alleged drug trafficking vessels at sea. The US says it carried out another deadly strike in the Caribbean over the weekend as criticism mounts that the operations may violate international law. Ira Spitzer joins us from Washington now.
Well, Guy, the U.S. military announced yet another deadly strike on suspected drug traffickers, the 15th known operation since September. These strikes, which have been carried out in both the Caribbean Sea and the Pacific Ocean, are believed to have now killed around 65 people and have raised questions about whether the Trump administration has the legal authority to do this. According to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, the latest strike targeted a vessel in the Caribbean, killing 3 men whom he described as narco-terrorists. He said the boat was carrying drugs and traveling along a known trafficking route and emphasized that the mission took place in international waters. U.S. officials have described the strikes as intended to stop drugs from reaching the U.S., with Defense Secretary Hegseth saying the administration will treat cartel-linked groups exactly like al-Qaeda. But critics have accused the administration of carrying out extrajudicial killings. Last week, the UN's High Commissioner for Human Rights demanded an investigation, calling the strikes unacceptable and saying that they must end. And on Capitol Hill, Democrats and even some Republicans say they're not getting answers from the Pentagon about the legal authority for the strikes or the targeting criteria. The administration insists the campaign is justified by a classified legal opinion and argues that the cartels pose an imminent threat to Americans. But as the death toll mounts and legal scrutiny intensifies, calls for more transparency are growing louder.
Okay, joining me now is Katie Wilson. Katie, welcome. Let's break this down then. What did President Trump actually say, and how is the White House framing these latest comments?
So Donald Trump is playing down these comments. Now, he's playing down the possibility of a US war with Venezuela. He spoke to CBS's 60 Minutes and said, "I doubt it, I don't think so, but they've been treating us very badly." That's in regards to the possibility of a war. Now, the US is continuing to launch strikes on alleged drug smuggling boats in the Caribbean, and the Trump administration says the strikes are necessary to stem the flow of drugs into the US. Now, it's worth pointing out that at least 61 people have been killed in these strikes, so they're not without fatalities. Now, the US also hasn't publicly released evidence to substantiate these claims that they're making. The Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro, has rejected the US's claims and says it's politically motivated these strikes. But Trump has denied that the action was politically motivated or aimed at ousting Maduro, who is a long-time opponent of President Trump.
And any sense, Katie, as to how long this might continue?
Well, Trump is refusing to rule out any strikes on land. He was speaking from his Mar-a-Lago residence in Florida, and he said, "I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do with Venezuela, if I was going to do it or if I wasn't going to do it." That's the words of President Trump. So in a word, we really don't know. But what we do know is that Trump has authorized the deployment of the CIA to Venezuela, and the world's largest aircraft carrier is also being sent to the region. Now, this comes after 2 months of the US military building up a force of warships, fighter jets, bombers, marines, drones, and spy planes in the Caribbean Sea. Now, this is the largest deployment there for decades.
Now, what can we read into that? You know, not just deploying the CIA, but telling everyone that they're being deployed. What should we make of that?
Well, the CIA is viewed with a lot of suspicion by many in Latin America because it does have a long history of covert interventions, attempts at regime changes, and also support for past right-wing military governments, if you think of Chile, if you think of Brazil. Now, what we know is that Trump has authorized the CIA to conduct covert operations in Venezuela. Now, this is quite unusual that Trump is actually admitting this. Normally, this is a highly guarded state secret, but here's Trump saying this publicly. Now, what covert operations actually means? Well, Ned Price, who is a deputy to the US representative to the UN and a former CIA senior analyst himself, he says that CIA covert operations can take many forms. It could be information operations, sabotage operations, funding opposition parties, and it can even go as far as the overthrow of a regime. Now, for Venezuela in particular, what does that mean? Well, it could include agents being used to target trafficking suspects inside the country. Now, Venezuela isn't a major production point for drugs, so there's unlikely to be cocaine or fentanyl labs to take out, but there are airstrips or ports which the US could target. Now, according to the US's own definition, this could include Maduro himself. Maduro does face indictment in the US on drug trafficking charges, and when Trump was asked by the CIA, Trump was asked if the CIA, had been given authority to take out Maduro, he said it would be ridiculous to answer. So it's dodging that fundamental question there of what the US's intentions really are here.
Lots of countries around the world have got a view on this. So what do the regional actors think? And also give us a sense of how Russia are responding.
Yes, so the strikes have drawn condemnation in the region, and experts are questioning the legality of these strikes. And as you mentioned, the Kremlin has been wading into this. So it's being sold by the US as a war on drug trafficking, but all of the signs are suggesting that it's actually an intimidation campaign to remove Nicolas Maduro from power, the Kremlin. So they've confirmed that it's monitoring developments closely, and they've condemned the United States for what it described as the use of excessive military support in the Caribbean. And they've expressed support for the Venezuelan president, which isn't totally surprising if we think of those traditional Cold War allegiances. Now, the Washington Post has also reported something interesting, that Venezuela has been reaching out to Moscow for military assistance. Now, that could be defense radars, aircraft repairs, and potentially missiles. And it's also mentioned a similar letter sent to the Chinese president, Xi Jinping, seeking expanded military cooperation. So with the US continuing these operations and Venezuela seeking those closer defense ties with Russia and China, we can certainly expect those traditional Cold War tensions between countries to intensify.
Now, even if regime change is the strategy, nevertheless, history's taught us that can be a very difficult and protracted process to engage in. Whatever the end goal is, how do you expect the US's policy towards Venezuela to develop over the next 6-12 months?
So, as you say, the US says this is all about drugs, but it probably isn't about drugs. Analysts are they're suspicious of that narrative, and that's a broad agreement there. Donald Trump is saying it's a war on narcotics traffickers, and says one vessel the US struck last month was loaded up with mostly fentanyl. However, fentanyl is primarily produced in Mexico, not South America.
We hear it a lot, don't we? We hear fentanyl mentioned a lot. Yeah.
Yes, but that comes to the US through the southern border rather than from Venezuela. And Venezuela doesn't produce large quantities of cocaine either. That's mainly Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia. So military analysts have also pointed out that intercepting drugs at sea doesn't require the force as big as the current US one. So we're talking about the policy towards Venezuela, the end game. Well, there's no secret the US would like to see Maduro toppled. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told Fox News that Maduro was a horrible dictator, but even for overt critics of Maduro like Rubio, it's difficult to explicitly call for military-backed regime change in terms of the US policy towards a country. And Analysts are arguing that this military buildup is a show of strength intended to strike fear in the hearts of the Venezuelan military and also Maduro's inner circle so that they may move against him. So if we look at some other US policies towards Venezuela, the US has upped its bounty for information leading to Maduro's arrest to $50 million. So whether that is enough to persuade them, it remains to be seen. And economic sanctions on Venezuela have also exacerbated that already severe economic crisis, but they haven't succeeded in persuading senior figures to turn against their president just yet. So that's what we can expect in the medium to long term.
Okay, Katie, we appreciate your analysis very much. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, do join us. We're going to take a short break now, but do join us after the break.
It's often said the world never sleeps, but who's ready to wake you up with all you need to know about what is happening across the globe and in the region?
We are. Daybreak is live every morning, bringing you a complete wrap-up of the stories from overnight, all the news already happening in the world.
The biggest global headlines, the key regional developments, the must-read stories shaping the day.
We show them, we discuss them, we guide you through their meaning. We give you the news and a first look at the key headlines.
I'm Nadia Jani.
And I'm Lou Brown.
Join us, it's Daybreak here at A News.
we are 3 states and 1 nation, and that is Turkey, that is Azerbaijan and Pakistan.
Pakistan's Prime Minister is going to attend the victory parade in Baku.
Azerbaijan for all what was going on in Armenia, and we were with Azerbaijan.
2 nuclear powers still in a type of conflict.
As a Prime Minister on the Forum of SAARC, I had a lot of interactions with the former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh.
It's often said the world never sleeps, but who's ready to wake you up with all you need to know about what is happening across the globe and in the region?
We are. Daybreak is live every morning, bringing you a complete wrap-up of the stories from overnight and all the news already happening in the world.
The biggest global headlines, the key regional developments, the must-read stories shaping the day.
We show them, we discuss them, we guide you through their meaning. We give you the news and a first look at the key headlines.
I'm Nadia Jani.
And I'm Lou Brown.
Join us, it's Daybreak here at A News.
Welcome back to Primetime. Okay, let's dive into the digital world now. Joining me to tell us all the trending social media posts out there is our very own Guli Garadagli. Guli, what's happening out on social media?
Well, today's social media lineup has a bit of everything, from powerful moments in Afghanistan to pure color and celebration in Mexico and a creative touch from Baku. Our first post is about a devastating earthquake in northern Afghanistan, which has damaged one of the country's most important religious landmarks, the Blue Mosque in Mazar-e-Sharif. Rescue teams have been working through the night. Let's take a look.
السلام عليكم. الحمد لله شو مدرس أنا حيرتاس.
Even as parts of the world face hardship, others are finding joy in honoring life and memory, like in Mexico City. The city came alive in every color of the rainbow this weekend. Feathers, flowers, and painted skulls filled the streets for the Grand Day of the Dead parade. It's one of the most stunning celebrations of life, memory, and culture anywhere in the world.
Mexico City was awash with color, feathers, and painted skulls on Saturday as the capital held its Grand Day of the Dead parade, drawing around 1.5 million spectators, according to city officials. The event has become a highlight of Mexico's cultural calendar. Part solemn remembrance, part joyful carnival, honoring loved ones who have passed while celebrating life itself. Performers and visitors paraded along Paseo de la Reforma, dressed as the famous Catrinas. The elegant skull figure was created in the early 1900s by illustrator José Guadalupe Posada, who used her to mock those hiding their indigenous roots to imitate European fashions.
This is to thank the Mexican people for welcoming us and honoring your deceased. This makeup is to thank this wonderful country and its culture.
a este país tan maravilloso y a su cultura.
The Day of the Dead, or Dia de los Muertos, is a mix of Catholic and indigenous traditions, honouring the souls of children on November 1st and adults on November 2nd. Families build home altars, visit cemeteries, and offer food, drinks and candles to welcome the spirits back home.
I think it's a beautiful celebration of life after, afterlife. I'm very excited. I'm going after to build an altar, so I'm really excited to take part in that cultural experience as well. So I'm really excited to be here in Mexico City for it because I heard this is the place to be.
While the tradition is ancient, the modern parade is surprisingly new. It only began in 2016, inspired by the James Bond movie Spectre, whose opening sequence imagined a similar celebration. Since then, the parade has grown into a must-see global event, blending Mexico's rich heritage with cinematic flair, a vivid celebration where the past and present dance together in a swirl of color, music, and memory.
And from colorful celebrations to sporting triumphs, another proud moment for Kylian Mbappé. The Real Madrid star says awards don't mean much without the right people around you.
Recibe la Bota de Oro 2024-2025 el jugador del Real Madrid, Kylian Mbappé.
Un gran día, espero que...
It's a great day. I hope we'll continue playing like this as a team. The most important thing is the team, because it's impossible to win this award without all the people here, the top-level players by my side. You can be as strong as you want, but you can't win this kind of award without players, staff, a team, fans. I am aware of this. That's why I want to thank the team. We have an amazing team, and I hope we'll win several awards this year. The collective prize is the most important one. I think that we can win a lot of things with all the people who are here. It's a great delight to play at Real Madrid. Everyone knows it was my childhood dream. Now I'm here for many years, I hope. I hope I'll be able to win these awards for many years, and that I'll bring joy to Real Madrid fans who showed me love since the first day, even before Real Madrid gave me their love when I played in Paris and Monaco. That matters a lot to me.
Espero por muchos años, espero que...
And now, from football to space. There was a big launch day in China. The Shenzhou 21 mission has blasted off with its youngest astronaut ever on board, and even a few unexpected passengers. Meanwhile, something special is happening in Baku. Artists are turning steel into emotion, sound into storytelling, and tradition into living art. Let's take a look.
The soft murmur of waves, the whisper of tide against the shore. But this sound is not coming from the sea. It comes from within the walls of the Stone Chronicle Museum in Baku, from two vast drums suspended in silence. In the still air of the museum, the ocean is reborn through motion and memory. Grains of sand, small shells and metal spheres roll across stretched membranes, echoing the rhythm of water long gone. The last wave is not the sea as it is the sea as it was. A final resonance of water before it fades into memory. As part of Fly to Baku, Art Weekend, this is what Elvin Nabizadeh, one of the performers, wants visitors to experience.
The work asks what happens when sea falls silent, when its breath replaced by machinery, and its pulse by programmed motion.
When you enter, the sound, familiar to all of us, creates a pleasant impression. But my intention is to remind visitors of the threat of the sea disappearing. Using a musical instrument we all know well, the gavel, I was able to reproduce the sound of waves. My goal with the kinetic installation is to evoke a sense of responsibility for the loss of beauty, so that in the future we won't need mechanisms or objects to hear the sea's voice.
Where the strength of technology meets the delicacy of creativity, the Baku Steel Art International Metal Symposium comes to life. Organized by Baku Steel Company for the second time, this event is an integral part of the Fly to Baku, Sense the Future Now International Art Festival, bringing industry and art together on the same stage. Here, artists breathe new life into steel, transforming it into original and unique works of art. Sculptural creations, shaped through diverse artistic approaches, merge the industrial power of steel with the aesthetic sensibilities of contemporary art. The symposium not only reinforces the dialogue between technology and creativity, but also carries a strong ecological message. The sculptures highlight the importance of protecting nature, giving new life to waste, and living in harmony with the environment. The Pistachio. Living Heritage is a multidisciplinary project that weaves literature, craftsmanship, and ecology into a single artistic vision. Inspired by a short story by Maghsood Ibrahimbayev, the monodrama The Pistachio Tree explores universal human themes, memory, belonging, and continuity through the lens of Azerbaijani storytelling. At the heart of the project is the Pistachio Carpet, a hand-woven triptych by Azaculture, which reimagines centuries-old weaving traditions in a contemporary context. Completing the project is the symbolic planting of a pistachio tree in Isherishehir, serving as a living monument to renewal, sustainability, and the enduring roots of cultural memory in Azerbaijani soil.
Our project is based on Maghsood's story, The Pistachio Tree. Azaculture created 3 hand-woven carpets depicting pistachio trees, and we staged a performance in Azerbaijani based on the story, starring Shavki Guseynov. We also planted pistachio trees in front of our centre. Through this project, we aim to highlight the connection between past and future.
Rooted in both earth and imagination, the project reaches beyond the stage and loom with the symbolic planting of a pistachio tree, a living monument to renewal, sustainability, and cultural endurance.
Together, story, craft, and living nature form a poetic dialogue between past, present, and future. The project reflects resilience, creativity, and the ways in which heritage and the natural world continue to shape our shared identity.
Due to technical reasons, we couldn't see the space video, so let's take a look at it now. Thanks for watching the social media segment. Don't forget to check our website at anews.tv, and of course check us out on all of the social media platforms. Back to you, Guy.
Guli, thank you very much indeed. Okay, now let's take a look at other major stories from around the world. Nigeria is pushing back but not shutting the door after President Trump's threat of US military action over the mistreatment of Christians. Abuja says it's open to help, just not boots on the ground. The government insists it can handle Islamist insurgents but needs weapons, not warnings.
Nigeria says it would welcome US assistance in fighting Islamist insurgents, as long as its territorial integrity is respected. The statement comes after US President Donald Trump threatened military action over what he described as the mistreatment of Christians in the country. Nigeria, a nation of more than 200 million people and roughly 200 ethnic groups, is split between a largely Muslim north and mostly Christian south. Insurgent groups such as Boko Haram and Islamic State West Africa Province have killed thousands over a period of more than 15 years. Officials say Nigeria does not need American troops on its soil, but would appreciate support through military aid.
Our soldiers have the capability to deal with this thing, so we do not require the American soldiers' boots on the ground. What we need is the apparatus, the equipment, the access to some of these things that will aid our own military force and some of the paramilitary and intelligence operatives to deal with this.
Trump has also threatened to suspend all US assistance to Nigeria if the government does not act decisively to stop the killings. Meanwhile, Christian leaders in northern Nigeria voiced support for Trump's warning, but cautioned against any attempt to dictate the country's political leadership.
Nigerians must not also forget that we've also gone to other countries to tell their leaders to do right. So let's not be hypocrite in this matter. What some of us will not support is anybody deciding who should be our leader. It's purely a Nigerian thing. But if they are reminding us that what is accepted in our constitution, what is acceptable in other standards, we should do it. If we say they shouldn't, then we should also say that the Americans should have nothing to do with us. We can't receive their aid and say they shouldn't be worried about things that are going wrong among us.
Nigeria, with its mix of Christianity, Islam and traditional religions, has a long history of coexistence, though periodic violence often flares due to ethnic tensions and competition over scarce resources.
A sombre return to Tel Aviv on November the 2nd, 2025. A convoy carrying the bodies of Israeli hostages handed over by Hamas arrived at Israel's National Forensic Institute. The transfer came under a US-brokered ceasefire, now strained by mutual accusations of violations.
A convoy carrying the bodies of Israeli hostages arrived at Israel's National Forensic Institute in Tel Aviv on Sunday. The bodies were handed over by Hamas as part of the ongoing ceasefire process. However, both sides blame each other for breaking the fragile agreement that has largely stopped 2 years of fighting. The Israeli military confirmed receiving 3 coffins from the Red Cross. If confirmed as the deceased hostages, the bodies of 8 Israeli and foreign captives still remain in Gaza. The 3 bodies are believed to be among 11 whose remains Israel expects to receive under the terms of the US-brokered ceasefire. Hamas's armed wing, the Al-Qassam Brigades, said the remains were found along a tunnel route in southern Gaza earlier on Sunday. Israel has accused Hamas of delaying the transfers, while Hamas says it is working under difficult conditions to recover remains trapped under rubble. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said all families of hostages have been informed, adding that efforts to bring every hostage home will not cease until the last one is returned. Earlier, A News spoke with Rotem Cooper, the son of one of the hostages, whose father's coffin was among those returned to Israel on Sunday. Under the first phase of the ceasefire deal, launched on the 10th of October, Hamas agreed to release 20 living hostages, which it has done, and 28 deceased captives. So far, 20 bodies have been handed over. Meanwhile, Red Cross and Egyptian search teams entered Gaza City's Shujaiya area to recover more remains. They were given permission to work beyond the yellow line, which marks Israel's military pullback zone.
To Europe now. In Belgrade, anger reignited on November the 1st, a year after the Novi Sad station roof collapse that killed 16. Thousands rallied for Dijana Hrka, a grieving mother on hunger strike, demanding justice. Police clashed with protesters as Serbia's corruption scandal deepens.
Flares were used as tens of thousands of protesters in Serbia's capital ran and shouted as tensions escalated in support of Dijana Hrka, a mother whose child died in last year's Novi Sad railway station roof collapse. She began a hunger strike early Sunday, determined to hold the government to account. Officers formed cordons to separate opposing groups in Belgrade as unrest spread through nearby streets, marking the first anniversary of the tragic event. Police prevented Herka from entering the area controlled by pro-government supporters who have camped outside the building since March. Months of demonstrations across the country have shaken President Alexander Vucic's long hold on power, fueled by anger over the lack of prosecutions for those blamed in the disaster. Protesters expressed a mix of emotions, both frustration and solidarity.
People here are gathering to support a woman who is fighting for justice, who lost her son, who is on a hunger strike, which is the most radical measure, and the police are currently letting SNS supporters throw pyrotechnics at people and not reacting to it.
Emotions are mixed. I've seen a lot of my acquaintances and that invokes nice, friendly emotions. And on the other hand, there are bad emotions. Emotions of anger when we see that crime is being promoted in this country under the protection of the regime and that peaceful protesters are being attacked.
Last week, an independent commission of judges, professors and engineers reported to the European Parliament that corruption and the hiring of unqualified contractors caused the deadly collapse that killed 16 people on the 1st of November last year. The Serbian government denies these claims. President Vucic and Parliament Speaker Ana Brnabić have suggested the incident might have been an act of terrorism. 13 people, including senior officials, have been charged, but no trial has begun.
Jamaica is facing a growing food crisis after Hurricane Melissa tore through the island on Tuesday. The Category 5 storm destroyed farms, killed livestock and left thousands without a source of income. In the country's main farming region of St. Elizabeth, producers say the storm has wiped out entire harvests.
Jamaica is staring at a food crisis. Hurricane Melissa, one of the strongest storms to ever hit the island, didn't just tear down homes. It wiped out the country's food supply. Fields once full of vegetables and fruit are now bare, and farmers say the damage will take months, maybe years to recover. In St. Elizabeth, known as Jamaica's food basket, the destruction is heartbreaking. Rows of farmland have turned into muddy wastelands. Poultry farms have collapsed, and thousands of animals are gone. For farmer Osborne Brumley, the loss is unbearable. His life's work, a modern egg farm that once produced for hotels and markets across Jamaica, is now just twisted metal and silence.
It is a fully automated egg facility. Presently, we would normally have like 41,000 brand new birds in a brand new facility, and we wanted to go much further than the 41,000. But it is totally destroyed now. We have more than 15,000 dead birds, but we still have a lot of live birds. But there's no facility for them, so they will eventually die from thirst and hunger. There's nothing we can do about it because it's totally destroyed.
Brumley says the storm didn't just destroy his farm, it destroyed food for thousands of families.
There is a food shortage right now because all the food most of it has disappeared in the wind and gone. And starvation is going to kick in, serious starvation. People not going to have what to eat.
Just a few kilometers away, farmer Milton Machette stands on his land surrounded by broken vines and uprooted trees.
Yeah, rotten. You understand? Yeah, rotten. So, don't know. Well, this category 5 is a terrible impact for Jamaica because it's a lot of farmers lose a lot. This is my food basket. I cannot do nothing without my food basket.
St. Elizabeth was once the pride of Jamaica's agriculture. Now it's barely recognizable. Others, like livestock farmer Richard Holness, are mourning not just the loss of income, but the animals they raised by hand. Farmers here say they've weathered storms before, but nothing like this. Many are left without electricity, clean water, or feed to keep their remaining animals alive. Hurricane Melissa has deepened fears of food insecurity across Jamaica. Prices are rising fast, and some communities are already struggling to find fresh produce. For Brumley, rebuilding won't be easy. But what hurts most, he says, is the feeling of helplessness, watching thousands of lives he cared for slip away.
You can't explain how you feel seeing all the birds being crushed. They're flattering, they're dying. And you can't even save them, you have to be saving your own life.
As the island tries to recover, Jamaica's farmers say they don't just need aid, they need hope. Because for them, the next harvest isn't just about making a living, it's about feeding their country again.
Now to an environmental shock, as Lahore has once again been named the world's most polluted city. Thick, choking smog has blanketed Pakistan's cultural capital, forcing hospitals to handle a surge in patients struggling to breathe.
Lahore is once again choking under a blanket of thick smog, topping the list of the world's most polluted cities. Pakistan's cultural capital is shrouded in a toxic haze, and hospitals are struggling to cope with a surge in patients finding it harder to breathe.
Earlier, we used to receive about 20 to 30 patients daily with respiratory problems, rhinitis, common cold and sinusitis at our outdoor medical facility. But now there are 70, 80 plus. The condition of patients with asthma is getting worse, and also common colds and allergies are on the rise. When a pregnant woman gets a cough and respiratory problem, she suffers abdominal pressure, which can cause many complications. The child will suffocate from the lack of oxygen if a woman does not breathe properly.
According to Swiss monitoring group IQ Air, Lahore was ranked the most polluted city in the world on Sunday, with air quality levels reaching the very unhealthy range, at times nearing 400 on the air quality index. Doctors say the crisis is already taking a toll on the city's most vulnerable, especially children, the elderly and pregnant women. But despite the suffocating air, many residents refuse to give up their daily routines. At cricket grounds and local parks, people try to hold on to small moments of normal life, even under the thick grey sky.
If exercising and playing in cricket grounds can help us breathe better despite the smog, that's a great facility. The government should develop and maintain the remaining grounds in Lahore, not destroy them.
The Punjab government says it has deployed anti-smog guns and water sprinklers to control the dust. Every winter, Lahore's plain geography and cold air trap pollutants from vehicles, factories and crop burning, turning the city into a cloud of grey. For millions, it's becoming a season not of cool winds, but of breathless days and restless nights.
It's the political race everyone has their eyes on. New Yorkers head to the polls in a high-stakes mayoral election, one that could reshape the city's future. With progressive Democrat Zohran Mamdani, independent former Governor Andrew Cuomo and Republican Curtis Sliwa all in the running, the contest has become a referendum on leadership, ideology and the city's direction.
New York City voters are heading into one of the most anticipated local elections in years, a race that could shape not only the city's future, but also the direction of the Democratic Party nationwide. The battle for City Hall has come down to three names: Democratic nominee Zohran Mamdani, independent candidate and former Governor Andrew Cuomo, and Republican Curtis Sliwa. But much of the spotlight is on the showdown between Mamdani and Cuomo, two figures representing sharply different visions for New York's future. Zohran Mamdani, a Democratic socialist and state assemblyman from Queens, has built his campaign around affordability, housing and social equality. His platform includes a rent freeze on rent-stabilised apartments, fare-free buses and redirecting parts of the city's budget towards social programmes. He's drawn strong support from younger and working-class voters.
And one of the most heartbreaking things that we've all seen is someone who just cannot get enough time or energy or money together to get what they deserve, care they deserve. And we hope that when Zoran's mayor, that he can help us all do that for everyone that deserves care in the city.
Donald Trump has injected controversy into New York's mayoral race, warning that if Zoran Mamdani is elected, he could deploy the National Guard and cut federal funding, arguing that Mamdani is a communist threat to the city's stability. Andrew Cuomo, meanwhile, is seeking a political comeback after resigning as governor in 2021 amid sexual harassment allegations. Running as an independent after losing the Democratic primary, he's presenting himself as a pragmatic centrist who can restore stability and fiscal discipline to City Hall. Cuomo has criticised what he calls ideological experiments in local government and says New York needs experience over extremism. Mamdani have previously accused Cuomo of mismanaging state funds and favouring wealthy donors.
Let our words ring out so loud tonight that Andrew Cuomo can hear them in his $8,000 a month apartment.
While Cuomo claims Mamdani's policies would drive the city into chaos. Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa is running on a law and order platform, arguing the city has become less safe and less affordable. However, in a city that leans heavily Democratic, analysts say his chances remain slim, though he continues to campaign across the 5 boroughs. Issues driving the race are familiar to New Yorkers: housing affordability, safety, migration and inequality. Both Mamdani and Cuomo have pledged to tackle rising costs, but they differ on approach. Mamdani pushing structural reform, Cuomo advocating experienced, moderate governance. Polling stations open early Tuesday morning across the city, with strong turnout expected in Queens and Brooklyn, key bases for Mamdani. While early results are expected by Tuesday night, final tallies and certification may take longer.
Well, that brings us to the end of Prime Time. Please do join us tomorrow night for more news and analysis. And from all of us here at A News, thanks for watching.